Twitch.tv/whatever. Drop us a follow. Drop us a Prime sub. I had a question. I want to go around on this. Does anybody here have or previously have had a roster?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Especially when I was, I had, so I didn't really go to college, but when I was 27, I had like what I would consider my party phase. Absolutely. Yeah.
Party phase?
Yeah. I went to like different like BBW parties when I lived in Georgia.
Okay. I got some notes on that, I think.
What's BBW?
That stands for Big Beautiful Woman. It was originally started as a porn category and eventually was co-opted as just like an identifier that some fat women use. I used to. I don't anymore.
They have parties for that?
They do, like for people who are them and people who like them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a roster. So what was the size of the roster?
Depended. There was a point where it depended on the situation in the beginning. It was a bit longer, but like when I was living in Georgia at the time, I had my own place.
Were you in Atlanta?
Close. I was like North Metro Atlanta, like right on the outskirts.
Yeah.
But I would go down to different events in the Atlanta area all the time. But I was like, it was during my first breakup. Like I mentioned, me and my ex, we broke up for 9 months. That was during 2019. And
well, so what?
That was like when I first really co-opted, like I mentioned earlier, the get under to get over. It didn't work the first time, so I don't know why I tried it again.
Well, how big was the roster? 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, couple. You said you're bi, right? So maybe a couple girls.
Yeah, I mean, that was when I explored my sexuality.
Yeah.
So I did hook up with a couple girls. But 5
guys?
I would probably say it was anywhere between like
what
2.
Madison, what do you do?
I'm just like getting delusional right now. I haven't had much to eat today.
There's whatever cookies over there.
Thank you.
There's still whatever.
Yeah, I mean there was a few people, but for me it was more like situationship. But I was just kind of like way too casual. I was like doing stuff that I would never do now. I had my moment. I learned
What was your moment? What is your moment?
Well, so some of the parties were like regular parties, but some of them were swinger parties.
Okay.
How was that?
Fun, but problematic. That's the best way to answer it shortly.
Well, how many? Because I in my notes here, I think you mentioned BBW, poly parties, sex parties. How many of these parties would you say you went to? Just a couple, or like regularly? This was over the span of 6 months. When I was in the thick of it, they had basically parties every other weekend. Okay, and you would go pretty much every other.
For about at least 4 months, I did.
4 months.
I mean, I didn't always do something at the party.
But you'd go.
But it would depend, like, on if I had invited people I already knew there, or if I met someone. Whatever happened.
At these parties, do people typically just like, will they hook up? Maybe they don't hook up at all, but if they do hook up, is it with just one person, or will they like sleep with like multiple people? Like, for example, did you ever hook up with like 2 dudes in a night or 3 dudes in a night?
Yeah.
More?
Yeah.
More?
There's a specific high number for the most I did in one night, but
let's hear it. You got it.
I haven't talked about this stuff in such a long time.
You got it.
I just want to, before I go into this topic, I do want to say this isn't who I currently am.
Totally fine.
I'm talking about a past version of myself that
totally fine.
Would not make these decisions now, but at one night, 10.
Was that like an intentional goal? Like you went in?
No, it actually was kind of accidental. I just like I was very laissez-faire about life at the time, and it was something where I had been like, I felt very repressed, and like my first real relationship lasted 8 years. I had one before that, but it only lasted 5 months. And so at the time, I'm sorry, it would have been about 6, but 6 years.
This was after your 8-year relationship ended, or?
In the middle. So we broke up for 9 months.
Oh.
And then when we got back together and we broke up officially, that was like in 2021.
Okay.
How does that happen? Like, honestly, how does that, you just like, I'm depressed, I'm going to go get involved in a gangbang? Like, I don't.
I mean, was I self-actualized in the moment about that? Not really. It was just more like, very repressed childhood, I never really let myself go crazy, and I basically let myself like have my wild fun free, because I was in an environment where I kind of felt like I was not only supported but like really wanted, desired, which I had experienced, obviously, because I've been in a relationship, but not in like that type of casual way. And so I got invited into it by someone, and I didn't know what I was getting into. It's
probably
kind of
felt
the bottom
good
line.
though to have that acceptance.
It did, and like
so you come back for
I
it.
met people who like I'm still friends with. Like I met people who
Are
from
they
like
still
all
in
walks
that
of
scene?
life. Most of them have walked away, because once you're in it for a little bit, you do like start to really not only see the toxicity around you, but within yourself. And it took me going through a couple other things post this experience that made me realize that like I was chasing like a high, like I was using sex in ways that weren't healthy, and like it made me self-reflect. It made me change.
If you could go back now, would you do the same thing?
I've thought about that question a lot. Now, honestly, I think I would, because I am the kind of person that likes to live my life with no regrets, and I believe that everything I've been through, everything I've done, and every decision I've made has led me to who I am at my heart as of today. And while I wish I could have done things better and I could have had better results in certain aspects of my life, I love myself and I love who I am, and I
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you,
Okay.
Brian. Just
and I love how I can turn.
But is it a regret?
And again, that's one of those things where it's a yes, and it's like I don't want to have.
I
regrets,
understand
but
the mindset of
yeah,
I want to
I
live
wish I
as
could have
though
learned
nothing
lessons
is
in
a
a less
regret.
reckless way. Let's say
Yeah.
that. I wish I could have learned certain lessons in a less reckless way, because I feel like I was reckless. I was recklessly dating. I was recklessly like living. I was at that point in my life, in that situation. That's not how everybody was in those scenes, but that's how I was.
So
if that
would you?
makes
You
sense.
said you would do it again?
I'm the kind of person where like I wouldn't want to go back and change anything about my life, because I want to be who I am.
Well,
if
that's
that
kind of
makes sense.
entailed in you would do it again.
Again. You said you would do it again.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, because you said you're not that person anymore.
Yeah.
So where's the nuance in that?
She's not saying that she would do it now. She's saying the person that she has become today, and the reason why she might not choose to do it anymore is because she already had that experience, and she decided it's not something she moves forward with.
And I learned life lessons from it, and that is, I've lived my life being the kind of person that has to learn from my own mistakes and learn from doing things. And I struggle, I feel like, for things to fully click or land until I've experienced them for myself.
Do you think it's a healthy process though so I understand the mindset of saying live without regret, right? You can't
Right.
dwell on regrets. That's true,
Yeah.
right? Eventually people have to move forward from things that they've done, this and that. But is it also though still healthy to have things that you regret? Isn't that how you progress?
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, because like, I mean, do I regret the recklessness? Yes. But yeah, I don't like to dwell on them, and I try to live on the thing of like, I don't want to hold shame within regret.
Yeah, I
Maybe
feel
that's
like
what
the
I'm trying to
connotation
say.
of regret is so negative. Like,
Yeah.
why can't it be something like a lesson learned? Like, for instance, I hear what you're saying, and there's definitely things where I'm like, dang, like that probably wasn't the best choice. Or
Yeah.
if it presented itself right now, I would definitely choose different. But acknowledging that what had happened in the past made me who I am today, made me as strong as I am today, or made me as soft, or whatever the positives were, that had to happen to be who I am today. So
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
probably instead of regret, maybe just respect.
Well, I think-
respect that it happened.
So this might
yes,
be
thank
like
you.
a difference in worldview too, but I think that regrets are necessary for us to move forward in life. And here's what I mean by this.
Okay.
I mean that you should look on some of the things you've done in life in a negative way for yourself and negatively view yourself for having done those things. And that's the only way to reconcile them, to move on from them.
Yeah, we
I guess-
definitely disagree in that. But I also, I was raised really, really religious, and I know that that's part of the religious standpoint is that sins and
Well, it's actually kind of, but there is absolution, right? But absolution comes with the confrontation that
Right,
the
so what
thing
I'm-
you did was wrong and it should never be repeated, and you know it was wrong. That's where absolution
For sure, but
comes, right?
acknowledging something is wrong and regret are not necessarily the same things.
And
How do
from-
you know it's wrong with if you don't regret it?
You can look at the outcome of it. You can look at the intention of what your action was. I'm a type of person who believes in positive, negative, and so I'll look at more of the intention of it. And the lesson learned is still going to happen, but I don't need to look at it necessarily as a negative to make it be something that I learned.
But that
from
feels
it.
like
And
it's just a
doesn't-
way to avoid responsibility.
You say avoid, but I still learn from that.
Yeah, but it's still, by saying like, there's no real, this is negative, but I don't regret it. This is negative, but it wasn't bad. This is negative.
No
but,
one said it wasn't
Yeah.
bad.
But
Those
the-
are not.
but-
Those
Well,
are not.
bad's a moral claim.
But
So that's
from-
why we said the word bad. So I'll try to use a different word.
Yeah.
Okay. But what you're saying is, I don't regret this thing. There was a negative outcome, and so I'll avoid it in the future, but there's no
Correct.
regret.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that would, from my perspective, stymie the growth. So the way that you grow as a person is to actually focus on the things that you have done which are incorrect.
They could be better.
Otherwise, you can't actually repent for those things in order to move forward
But
in your
there's
life.
something to be said about the fact that we're still humans and this is the human experience. We're growing and we're learning.
Yeah,
so
I
there's going to
agree.
be right. So there's going to be an amount of, yeah, you're going to make a mistake.
Yep.
For me personally, if I harbor regret, I'm living in the past. I'm living in the present, and me living in the past gives me anxiety. It doesn't allow
Yeah, but
me
it's
to flourish.
supposed
or
to.
grow.
That's the
So
point.
I think what has to happen is you have to come to the position where I regret that decision. I'm doing that I'm just doing that battle within myself, like sussing out what was good about the situation, what was bad. But then after you do all of that work, then you can move on. But when someone asks you about that point in your life where you made that regretful decision, you can discuss with them, this is what I sussed out, this is how I worked through it, and that this is how it has led me to where I am right now.
For
And
me,
then you
when I
can
think
come up
about the
with the
word
should,
regret,
right?
I think about
Exactly.
something.
Should do.
But when I think about the word regret, I think about something where I wish this didn't happen.
That's what I was trying to say.
And the
like, this
problem
entire
is that
time.
when I say I wish this didn't happen, I don't acknowledge of what I learned from it.
Yeah, but if you no, it's not an I wish this didn't happen. It's an acknowledgement.
regret would be.
I did
that was
this,
my
and
understanding
it
of the word
was.
regret.
Yeah, me too.
I
That's my
did-
understanding
yeah,
of regret.
I
So we
did
just maybe
this,
have
and it was
understandings of
wrong,
difference.
and that's why I regret it.
Well, I also don't believe in wrong. I believe in positive and
That's
negative.
and that's what I said, right? So for me, from my perspective, it looks like a way to avoid responsibility by saying I didn't do anything wrong.
No, absolutely not. I think that
But then what you just said, you
So-
only believe in positive.
it wasn't
and
about
negative,
doing
right?
something wrong, right? It's like, okay, so let's say, for instance, something I called a regret in my past was I had this big crush on this guy when I was in Mexico on a vacation, and we were underneath the waterfall, and I could have kissed him, and I didn't. And I look back and like, I regret that I didn't just make that move. I was scared. I regret. And what I took from that is, okay, when I have a moment that I want to do better, I will make that jump. I will not be scared, and I will have the confidence to do it. And I told myself I don't ever want to have regret again because it doesn't feel good to have that sort of thing. And so I would look at it instead as like, okay, that was a moment that I wasn't at this level. I had to learn to become this level, and now I am who I am today.
Yeah, so I think if we're talking like if you're talking about a level of regret, it could be scalable. So there
For
could
sure.
be things
Yes, I would agree
so there
with
could be
that.
things that I regret, like maybe I die and say I regret not climbing Mount Everest, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the things that stick in our brain for the things that we regret the most generally coexist with things that we knew we were doing in the
Inherently
time, which
wrong.
was
Yeah.
wrong. You know what I mean? And those tend to be the things that we actually dwell on. And
I
that's
don't have
again.
any of those in my mind. Like when I'm trying to think back, like
You're all
'cause I-
right because you only believe in positive and negatives.
Yeah.
So that's
Like
why.
when I think about something like, oh, like.
But that's why I
could
see
have
it
done
as a
something
shifting.
better. Or I shouldn't have said this or done this. I think, okay, well, you were in a place where clearly you didn't know or you didn't make that assessment. Now
Mm-hmm.
you do know. All you can do forward now is make it better. Now, if you don't make it better, then you're not choosing to be living in your most positive aspect, and that will be something we won't necessarily agree on there. But I want to live at my highest vibrational level, which means that I'm going to be positive to people. The energy that I put out, I'm going to expect to receive, which means that genuinely I'm going to not try to do bad things onto others because I know that's going to come back to me tenfold.
Same.
I need to move on just so I can get through my notes here. But let's see. I do want to come back really quick to the whole BBW poly party, sex party thing.
Of course you do.
So, Tell us. I mean, there's a
I mean,
bunch.
I'm not really one to get super salacious on the internet about specifics.
Shoot.
But
He wants an invite, I think.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what's
I'm,
going
I'm,
on.
yeah. I do.
He definitely
I want-
seems to be the type into BBWs.
RSVP.
Just the
I need
this is
a-
the sex party part.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they have them for all types of people.
I would actually never go to a sex party.
Never's the long
No matter
time.
how attractive the women were, that's
What if it was like
degenerate.
a party just for you, just all Asian petite women with no
Oh,
plastic
just for me?
surgery
I mean,
with
I could
large
get behind
legs.
that one.
Well,
I
at that point, that's
suppose,
just an
but-
orgy.
I can get behind that, but like if it's like swingers and like, no.
You don't want anybody to watch you.
No, I get all the women to myself. Yeah, I'll take that. never going to happen, but I'll gladly take it. Okay, so you went to a bunch of these parties over the course of a couple months. Now, when you said you did 10 in a night, would it be like, was it group sex or would it be like one after the other and it was like individual sex? Okay. Good times. Good times.
In a very like vapid physical way, yeah.
Okay. All right. And let's see. Well, the original question was the roster thing, so we're going around the table. Do you have or have you ever? Excuse me. Do you currently have or have you ever had a roster?
No, I'm like disgustingly monoamorous. I get like tunnel vision on the first date, and I'll like delete dating apps if I like someone.
Okay.
So annoying. I am similar,
Wait,
and I'm trying.
what do you
sorry.
mean? How's it annoying?
Knowing that I do that as well.
Oh.
Like I hyper focus. Like I'll tunnel vision someone, which I've actually had to get out of doing because dating.
Okay, just go ahead.
gurus say
Just
you
go
should-
ahead.
Oh,
with the
sorry. They just say you shouldn't do that, so I've been trying not to. I guess.
Roster.
I tend not to have a roster now.
Okay. What about you?
No.
What if? Please speak
No.
into the mic if you can.
No.
And the guys don't need to answer. Whatever.
Of course.
So is that across the board? Yes. Is that what that is?
Well, and I will say, I definitely don't feel like my like future / current goals are not roster based. Like,
Sure.
in fact, the people that I've had like situationally, they've fizzled out because I've kind of I'm just not interested in that anymore. I'm looking for like a completely different dating experience. That's
Sure.
just like where I was once at.
Okay, got it. And let me get into some of my notes here finally. So let's see. Okay. You said you had some insane stories to tell us, Rosie. Is this related to the BBW sex swinger groups? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like with the
Okay.
group sex and stuff, like.
Nick, could you close that door?
But
The rest of the world doesn't need to hear this.
more or less, I mean, it seems like the audience here is pretty not interested in hearing about those types of things.
They might be.
No, this audience.
They might
is.
be.
I'm
They're
saying the
going to
people
be.
out there because the
The
door
people that
was
click
open.
on this are gonna wanna
it's
hear
like,
it.
close the door.
No, it was just getting cold. That's why.
It's cold.
The young children outside.
Yeah, the young children outside
What?
don't need to
Yes.
hear this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I just think that I'm trying to think because I probably should have thought this more thoroughly because I was thinking about like I mentioned some of those different dating experiences, but like I mean I met people who I like during that time the closest thing I had to a relationship because I was like extremely emotionally unavailable was someone that I met through what they called like the vanilla parties, which were like the non-sex parties. And he ended up like going to them and stuff, and we would hook up probably like a few times a week, I'd say. And like once he and I became more of a thing, I like backed down at the parties, and then some stuff started coming up, and I started really understanding like the dynamics of the parties and like how kind of predatory and weird they were set up. And I started waking up to like basically realizing what I was doing because at the time I was living my life on autopilot, and I was just kind of like yeah whatever, like nothing matters type attitude towards everything. So once I started like thinking things through, and then I was like slowly backing out of the parties, and then something like major like personally in my life happened that had me completely back out of it.
Okay. You said in your notes here that you're currently celibate by choice while on your healing journey. You're no longer casually dating. How long have you been celibate for?
So the last time I hooked up with someone was in February. Or no,
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, that's wrong. Since June. But that was a kind of like a return
June.
thing
Okay.
with
You recycled?
it was like going back to somebody. It wasn't like a new dating experience.
It wasn't
yeah.
a new body. You recycled the body.
Sure, if you want to use that kind of language.
That's what it's called, recycling. If you don't want to add
It's
to
like
your
you don't
body
start
count,
doing it again if you've already done it once with them.
it's
not a
like
new body.
you're recycling a body. Okay, all right. No, you don't. You object to the.
Just such a deranged way of looking at like human relationships.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's.
You're talking purely sex.
I feel like it's the
Like you're
least
so obsessed with the
deranged
quantity,
way.
you'd rather just say recycle a body. Like it's just
That's the terminology. That's
it's
the
a-
terms you people.
from
You've
people
never.
who don't fuck
You've never.
voluntarily.
Wait, what?
Like that's just like not like people who like normally
What?
date and see each other aren't using these terms.
It's very like
That's true.
dehumanized.
I've never
It's
used that
not.
term before.
It's not
It's
dehumanizing.
like you're studying romance from afar, from like an incel community.
Oh yeah, it's all incels.
What?
How
I didn't
dare
say
they?
all.
How dare? Well, how
This is a
dare
term-
people use
Hold on,
something
did you
that
just-
obviously
no, 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 no,
applies?
triggered by that word
This is actually a term.
Wait,
Wait, wait, wait.
He's worrying
What
for
just
me
happened?
now.
Stop.
They're
This is.
pay picking for him
Yo,
right now.
let me talk, please. This is a term I've actually heard originating from women. Women use this term. Oh, I'm recycling a body so I don't
Who?
add to
Yes,
my
because
body
of the
count.
pressure of this
These.
like obsession to always have a low body count. So I've heard women say too, like I'm recycling bodies so my body count doesn't go
You've
up.
heard it from women too. So why are you saying that it's like this incel community?
mean-
It's like from men and
I mean, women insults exist.
No, I'm not
That's
talking
not
about women
true.
incels, but
I disagree. I don't think a woman can be an incel.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like genuinely, I'm curious.
Because men
I don't
will
think
men will do anything with two legs.
because
not
there,
all men. I didn't
there's
say all
if
men.
any woman was so inclined to get laid, she could, regardless of her personality, regardless of her level of physical
I would
attractiveness.
definitely
could a
agree
guy.
with
I
that.
guess it's. I think
I
of,
would
like,
agree.
There's
with that.
no. It's if
The belief system.
Well, for
I agree
example,
with
there
that.
was a Reddit community dedicated to femcells, women who consider themselves involuntarily celibate, and it like was bombarded with men who were propositioning these women with sex. The reverse is not the case. There's not just women flocking to incel communities to fuck
Here's
these
the
men.
easiest
'Cause
way
they're
to
so
frame it,
hot.
right? If there was a male version of you, he's not having sex at sex parties and having sex with people back in June. That's not going to happen.
you think at
I
sex
mean,
He's
I
going to
disagree
the
with
same
that,
sex
but-
party.
Why would you disagree
He's
with
going
that?
to go to the same
Because-
sex party.
I would say, well, what I would argue though is that a man who's obese is going to struggle far more when it comes to purely getting sex than a woman who's obese.
That's the point, yeah.
well, you're not